Hi, welcome aboard. We are on the fifth episode. I'm Dr. E, welcoming you to the fifth podcast episode of The Widow Speaks. I'm going to recap for a second. I hope you've been joining us and that you're getting some tips out of this. I'm a newbie at this, so I'm just kind of doing it as I see it and hoping that you are getting something out of it. A lot of us are just trying to find our way, and I want to make sure that you are getting some sort of expert voices. My story is my story. We have some commonalities, but we also have many, many, many differences. But what I'm hearing from you guys out there, and we will have a time when you can call in or bring your questions. But what I'm hearing is that there are commonalities as well. Yes, your story is different, and you're going through what you're going through in your own way, just like I am. But the point is, we need to go through it, and we need to remember that we're not alone. We can do this together, and that there are a whole cadre of people out there that really can help us with some of these things that we haven't done before, or we could do them. Maybe it was our husband's thing that he wanted to do the bill pay, or I was never much one for taking the garbage out, but hey, I can do it. It's something that I can do. But there's just what happens is, you live with someone for your whole life and or however long, and then they're gone, and so whatever they did, of course you now do, and you need to keep the house running. In the past couple episodes, and as I say, this is our fifth. I can't believe it. And they are coming out on Wednesdays at 3. We thought that'd be a good time. If you know of someone that really could use this, please, tell them about it and let them know that we're doing this. And we would like very much for them to be a part of it. Or if you know someone that knows someone that needs this, I'm asking that you just kind of give them a hint and tell them it's going on. You might have been here last week. We didn't actually get this one out yet, but it's coming. So we interviewed a grief counselor, and she's wonderful. And we ended up doing 2 sessions with her because, she has a lot to offer. When you go through loss, it's all kinds of loss. But in our case, it's a huge loss because it's a loss of a person, a person that's been with you, that's intertwined with you, that's been your support. And really, as I said before, your personalities do kind of connect and mesh. So I was thinking today, just to try to, what our goal is and what our hope is that we can, again, we're in the valley, if you will, but we want to move through it. We don't want to stay in the valley. We don't want to be, God has us here, I believe, for a purpose. So our point is to find our purpose and to keep, to try to keep moving forward. So that's really what I'm hoping for you as well, that you'll find something in this, some tidbit, some piece of knowledge that will help you. And for me, what helps is sometimes just talking to other people, other widows and other folks that, they really are going through difficult things. That's part of life. And I've never been through this before. As I said, nobody prepares you for this, but it's tough. And you need to know it's tough. So when you're feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't go on, this is overwhelming, but it is pretty amazing how somehow you get that out, and then you find the strength to go on and to keep living, because obviously that's what you're supposed to do. I heard something just the other minute. Really, I was out in my car listening. I like to listen a lot to Joel Osteen because he's very uplifting. But he says something that it's hard to take because, I loved my husband very much, and 50 years is a long time. But he says God knows what he's doing. And when God puts a period there, it's a period. And he has a period for a reason. And you then have to begin to recognize that, stop maybe railing against it, which I'm a very strong personality. So, that's kind of what I like to do. I'm like, isn't there something else we could do here? But obviously, it's a period. So we have to figure out a way to accept it, to know that God has good things in our future, and to try to step into the future as opposed to just hanging back with our history, which was a wonderful history. So you're going to introduce you to my wonderful guest. This is Andrea Zavitz. I know her personally. I think the world of her. She's a fantastic mother. She has a little girl named Rose that's the cutest thing ever. I don't have any grandchildren, but she has graciously allowed me to be the grandma. And so she is my adopted granddaughter. And she also has a wonderful husband, a veteran. I think he's still working with the Army. He's a helicopter pilot. We thank him for his service. His name is Pete, and we lived next to them in Alabama when I was a school superintendent there. And I just love them, and she's become like a daughter to me, and he's become like a son. And as I said, I've got a grandchild now. So Andrea, welcome aboard. I'm just so impressed with your background. I mean, gosh, you're a certified mental health counselor. You are licensed. You can counsel in Florida, Alabama, and Virginia, I believe. As I said, you live in Alabama. You work with University of Alabama, is that correct? And also with the state of Alabama. She is a trainer for them on so many different areas. And one that I find very interesting is trauma therapy. Because if you stop and think about it, I think what we're going through is trauma, no doubt. So she does that. She deals with traumatic loss and so much more. She has many, many clients that she deals with on a personal level, but she's also out there, giving training to others so that they know how to recognize, signs and what to say and those kinds of things. So we are going to spend the rest of the time listening to Andrea with her knowledge and words of wisdom. And even though she's a baby, as they say, she's a young one. She's got a lot of knowledge and a lot of empathy and grace, and I so appreciate her. So welcome aboard to the podcast, The Widows Speak.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Phyllis. Thank you so much. I'm really, really honored to be here with you today and your
I'm so
audience.
glad. Good. Thank you for giving us your time. So I was wondering, many of us, might not have, and I didn't. I had a lot of things go on in my life while I was married, and you have a lot of different losses, but I had never really sought any kind of counseling. And I was wondering if you could kind of talk us through, for those that maybe never have done it like me, like what kind of things do you encounter? What should we be aware of or recognize?
Okay. Yeah. So when we're as a counselor, and we know that we have a widow coming into our office, we like to, of course, we're going to go through all the same things that we would for anybody else in terms of informed consent, making sure you understand what are the left and right limits of confidentiality and all those wonderful things like you would when you go to the doctor's office, that same information. And then some of the things that you can expect when it comes to, talking, or do you have to talk, or, are you just, is it okay to just cry the whole time? This is your time, right?
Right.
So when you're coming into counseling, think of it like it's based on what you need. So if you were trying to think, well, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to say I need, right? Because one of the things when you go to a doctor, it's the same idea, right? A doctor's going to ask, hey, what is it that's going on? What brought you here today? What do you need? And so sometimes all we need is for someone to listen. Because when we go to the doctor, right, we've got, maybe our stomach's been bothering us, or we've been getting a lot of headaches, or fatigue. We have physical symptoms to discuss. For someone that's never been to counseling and then to go through such a huge loss and becoming a widow, I think it's hard to articulate. I think that's one of the biggest things that person, that woman will need is, I need someone to help me figure out what I need. Sometimes that's what you're going to work on. So it's based off of wherever you need to start. When you think about counseling and meeting with a therapist, the idea here is that we're here to validate whatever you're feeling,
Okay.
what you're going through, get to learn and understand your journey and what brought you to our office. We're there to help normalize what those feelings of grief and what other feelings you might be going through. If you're coming in and you just feel like you're just going crazy, right? We're here to validate that. Like a counselor is going to validate that for you. The idea that there's a certain level of normalcy in all of this, there absolutely is. So even when you feel like you're completely falling apart, everything around you is crashing in, you don't understand yourself anymore and the level of feelings. You didn't know you could feel this type of pain or this level of pain. Counselor is going to be there to say, you're not losing your mind, right? You're not. You're experiencing something that any of us going through this would experience. And so being able to help encourage that person to talk about what's going on inside of them, create space for that. Sometimes we're silent. Sometimes we're just holding the space because there's just so many emotions. It's like a big tangled up ball of emotions. So one of the other things that someone might expect is being an opportunity to share stories about their husband, share, some of their special qualities, the things that they miss the most. It's whatever really that person wants to talk about when they come to the session, when they come to the visit. Another thing that we often talk about and create space to talk about is complex emotions. Somebody might be feeling guilty or anger. Those are usually the ones that during life we've gotten really good at stuffing and putting to the side because we carry on and we keep going, right? Sometimes we know how to deal better with sadness for a friend than our own sadness, right? We're really good at that as women. We're really good at being empathetic and strong for others. And what that often means is that we haven't created space within ourselves to hold all those emotions and validate our own emotions. We've been validating everybody else's emotions. So we give the opportunity as a counselor, we're going to give the opportunity to just be a part of that experience, help share that burden. So you don't have to feel, you get a whole hour or 45 minutes to have someone that can handle it, who's been trained to handle it, to share those emotions with. Because often what I find with the widows that come to see me, that they feel like they can't talk about it with other people, especially if they haven't been through it, because it's just going to make them feel bad. Guess what? You're not going to make your counselor feel bad. That's one of the biggest reliefs that I see women go through, is knowing that I can come and I can talk and I can cry, and it's with someone who can handle it. I can talk about the crazy feelings. I can talk about all the thoughts I'm having.
Yeah.
I can just sit and be, and there's no expectation. You're not there to validate the counselor like you've done for everybody else, right? For once, the counselor, you've got someone who's there to validate you, who's there for you.
That's a very, very different experience. I mean, certainly in my life, that's a huge, huge different experience. Do you find sometimes that you kind of have to ask those kinds of questions to get somebody to sort of open up to you?
Absolutely, because we've all rehearsed very well hiding those emotions and being very practical, honestly, right? We've got things we got to do. We're busy. We're, especially for my older widows that have been caretaking and taking care of their husbands before they pass away. We've been just hanging on by a shoestring, but not necessarily figuring out what we're even tethered to, because the person we're tethered to is the person that we're about to lose.
Right.
So, yes.
And there are people that will say to you, oh, you're in this phase of, caregiving, which is what your purpose is and what you're so fixed on. And they'll say, and I know they're right, but they'll say, you have to get out. You have to do something for you. You have to, kind of have some time to exercise or do this or do that. But that's just not even in your bailiwick. You're focused on, what can I do now? What do I need to do? I haven't done enough. Uh, the guilt, the pressure, all that other stuff is just there, and you're just, everything about you just wants to make the situation better. But sometimes in your heart, and I think I was getting these messages, pretty regularly, and maybe I didn't want to accept them, that it wasn't really about what I could do anymore. It was going to be about, making him as comfortable as possible, and probably saying things that I didn't mean in order to get him able to let go and leave the world that he so tried to stay into. But, it is what it is, and you're still here. So, you've got to keep going. And one thing that I noticed a lot is that, yes, you're right. A lot of us have been the ones that have been 24/7, the caregivers. So you don't even remember what your identity is. Well, who were you before all of this? I
Mhm.
mean, you knew me as a school superintendent, so I was busy, I was active, I was, going to schools, I was talking to teachers, I made big decisions and all those kinds of things. Well, then all of a sudden that's not there anymore, and your world becomes this small, just little place of, what can I do personally to make things better? But you sort of lose your identity. So I just wondered if you had any ideas about, that kind of thing. That's why you feel threatened in some ways about your life, because you're not quite sure who you really are, who you were when you're 21. That girl's gone, so who are you now? I don't know. It's like, and you are also changed, A, by the job you do. I mean, I had to be very, very serious, but B, by your marriage. You're very changed by the ups and downs and the things that you've experienced in that marriage. So now that girl that you were at 21, I don't think she's there anymore. So, like, do you have suggestions for how people can begin to really look to that and find themselves again?
I think so in practice, because this is all about practice, right? This is
Hmm.
practical application. What
Right.
can we do
Right.
in small bites, right? The idea then is trying to maybe just mentally and verbally shift from we to
Hmm.
I, being able to see yourself as an individual, because, like, of course we're individuals, and then we also are a couple when we're married, right? But our individualism is in the context of being a couple.
Hmm.
So it's almost like you've done all this going forward, and now we're trying to back it up a little bit. And no, we're never going to back up to 20-year-old self, right? We are the accumulation of our experiences. We are all those things that have made us who we are, and along the way, that understanding of that journey. And so I think it's understanding the new context of, you know, in some ways, you're always going to still be we. That person is a part of you forever. That doesn't just, you don't just stop loving someone because they're not physically on earth anymore. So I think it's being able to hold, and this is something I help individuals do, is holding this contrast and this conflict almost and comparison of I'm a new I, like my individuality is something new at this point, right? And for some widows, they are feel guilty about that because
Yes. Right.
that idea of if I want to go to get Thai food today, and my husband never liked Thai food, so I never went for Thai food. I could go do that, but then there's that sense of loss, and I have so many different things to process in that moment just to go get Thai food or to put Thai food in my grocery cart, right? So I think it goes to, can we do that in maybe once a day? Maybe one time a day. What's one thing that you could shift or include from we to I? And because there's so many emotional things that go in that shift, I don't think there's a hard and fast rule that you even have to do it once a day. I think it's just being able, maybe that's the goal, is something very, very small, very tiny, but also
That's a
so big.
that's a good expression of taking it by baby steps. You know, you could do that one thing a day. And what you say about saying we versus I is so very true. I mean, your whole life you've been, well, we did this or we did that or this is what, you know. And then even when you're talking about going out to get something to eat, I mean, it's almost in reverse for me. Like the places that we went to, again, um, I went to with my former husband, my great husband. I don't want to go to anymore. Like I can't yet face that. So your suggestion of trying to find something new that I like, but then you got to also face the whole bit about going in by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of us have not done that in years and years and years. And so you find you're going into a place and you're going to sit and have something and maybe sit there by yourself. It's pretty daunting, especially I think for a woman. I don't know. Maybe it shouldn't be, but it is. And I don't know. I guess people take books or do things like that, but I do think it's a good practice. Almost like if you're afraid of elevators and you try to get on one and say, I'm just going to go up to the second floor. But this would be, I think that's a great beginning. Um, and the whole thing about how we talk, boy, that's a big change, to say, I'm going to do this, or I live over here, or this is where I did such and such, instead of, the we all the time, the we. Because if you don't do that, then I guess it just keeps, you just keep getting stuck like Rick. You just keep getting mired
Yeah,
with both your feet into the past. And I think that as long as we are given life and we're supposed to be doing something with it, the only way to do that is to kind of climb out a little bit of your background and your history and try to see things, look more towards the future, as hard as that may be. And it is hard. It's really hard. You want to go back to your comfort zone, right?
absolutely. And
I
and
think.
when your comfort zone is we, and like you said, there's a period there.
All right.
That's the punctuation mark, is that it's a period, and there is not a we in the terms of physical reality. Then how can we just change up our language a little bit, like you did a
Right.
second ago when you said where I went with my husband, our favorite restaurants.
Right.
That's a small change, but it means so
But it
much, and it
means a lot.
allows you
Yeah, I agree.
one foot in the past and one foot in the present.
I think that was a really good suggestion. And I think we all know we need to move forward, and we do feel stuck in our grief and our longing for our past life. But is there any are there any last words that you might give us to try to help us to kind of unstick ourselves? Our daily routines are really important. Is there something there that you would suggest that we kind of look at?
Yes, daily routines are very important. I think, you know, it's very easy. Unfortunately, I've heard psychiatrists say this. I've heard friends say this. Family members will say this, and they'll say, well, you need to find some new ways to spend your evenings so you're not so alone or lonely. You need to find a new way to spend the weekend, or, you know, figure out a new family holiday tradition. Those things are going to come, right? It all depends on how fresh all of this is.
Right.
And are you, I go back to when this is brand new, when this is fresh. I think that the most someone might be able to do is go to, a friend's house when they're sad, if they've got someone. I think learning more about what life is like and that you're not alone, like your podcast, for example, educating yourself and finding groups of people, even if they're not like your next door neighbor or the friends that you've had. It may be going on the internet like this, to find that validation and be able to practically fill some of the space that we know can be very, very sad. I think if you can make punctuation marks in the sadness on a daily basis, to where if you like to drink hot tea, for example, I need to even set a timer. Depending on where an individual is in this process, to set a timer, have a cup of tea and put on one of your historically favorite shows or music. And for 10 minutes, you're going to do everything you can to be present in that moment.
Be present in that moment. That's the key. Well, Andrea, you're a fountain of information. And what I like about it is you're practical. You got practical information. And I think anybody that's heard this, there's one or two things hopefully that they can get out of it, and they can maybe begin to put into their repertoire. And I would just encourage people to seek somebody out like Andrea, or, find some ways that, again, that you can kind of educate yourself, get with others, and, try to do this. And so I want to say thank you. We're going to be signing off pretty soon. And I hope that, again, everybody will kind of find where we are. We're very grateful to Flagler Voice that has chosen to do this with us and feels like it's a service. And remember, we are 11 to 13 million out here, widows, and we're a strong group of women. And there's plenty of men out there too that know what we're talking about. And if you know of somebody, get them to come and listen. And the next times, we'll have some more folks just like Andrea with her wonderful words of wisdom. In the meantime, remember, God has beauty for ashes, and that means for you as well. And He is with the brokenhearted. So God bless you. We're going to sign off. Thank you. Thanks, Andrea.